Hey there, Form Junkies. I'm your host, Huck. I invite you over to Facebook.com/Forum Junkies, YouTube.com/Forum Junkies, and Twitter, which you can type in the @ and Forum Junkies. We're also on Google Plus. I hope to see you over there. We always need more friends. Delving right in, our first topic will be a pretty generalized topic that a lot of people across the forums talk about. It's kind of an older topic. I don't know, guys. What do you think? A month or two old? It's the mega damage versus number squish method.
Yeah, that was a while ago.
Yeah,
Very amusing
month
ideas
two.
though.
No, definitely. I don't know. I personally love to see, if I crit, 120k and it popped up 12 mega damage and it lights everywhere and fireworks. That'd be awesome. But anyways, let's just go ahead and talk about it. Um, First of all, Blizzard basically made the point, and everybody else has been kind of complaining about this, that as World of Warcraft has gone along, the number inflation of damage, healing, and mitigation in general has just gone completely wonky. And at the end of Wrath of the Lich King, it was the worst it's ever been. And I would dare to say that Dragon Soul, with the LFR and such like that, it may be a little bit more getting there, but nowhere near to the extent that like Ice Crown Citadel 30% buff and all that scaling was just out of control. So they basically said that there are two options before them, and there's actually three, and they really didn't say it, but there are actually three where they can just leave it where it is. But the two that they want to look into is mega damage versus number squish. And the mega damage option is actually pretty interesting, where it just consolidates 12k into, or let's say 10k consolidates it into one super damage or something like that. Just consolidates it, kind of like how in StarCraft, things will hit 1, 2, and above that, but never really high. Basically, consolidate that. And the reason why they want to do that option is on the table is because the basically server lag that goes in between whenever you hit a 120,543 is a lot harder to actually get from point A to point B than it is just putting in a 1 or a 2. So, and then the number squish, which I think is just about everyone's favorite out of the two, is basically they're just scaling numbers in general. They're just going to squash them down to 12k is 1.2k. 100 or let's say 230k health is back to 23k health. So, kind of going in, Darksend. Starting with you, Cody, because you're the new guy. Which one of these between the mega damage and number squish is your favorite? And basically, in your eyes, how would that one work better than the other?
Well, the first thing, they almost end up being the same thing at the end of the day. Because, like, if you're dealing 120k damage, let's say, with the number squish, then you deal, like, 120 damage. But with, like, the mega damage or something like that, then you just deal 120k. So, I mean, at the end of the day, it's going to look the same either way, whether you're doing which system. And with that in mind, I kind of like the number squish better because then it just makes items like far more manageable. We won't see like the 5,000 stamina and 6,000 strength and a million armor pen or crap like that on stats like as an item.
Armor pin's
And
still around? I didn't get the
just
memo.
just pulling random stats off the top of
Sorry,
my head.
sorry. Yeah, of course. Go
But
ahead.
yeah, like that's the main point. And then it's like it makes almost theory crafting a lot easier because then you don't sound as bad when you're like, oh well, if I swap these gems, I get an extra 400 intellect. But really, that's next to nothing because your gear has like 40,000 intellect on it. So I don't know. It just seems like the number squish would make a lot more sense. Just yeah.
So, the number squish, in your opinion, which I kind of tend to agree with, is just overall. I think the problem with the mega damage, I don't know if you agree with this or not, is it's almost too cartoony. Uh, just the way
Yeah.
they kind of, and they even kind of put it on the table as
Yeah,
a joke with that picture of the mage,
that's one thing I thought it was one of those Daily Blink or MMO comic things, not an
Yeah.
actual Blizzard post when I first saw it on MMO's homepage. I'm like, this can't be a serious post, is it? So I mean, that's why I don't like that option at all.
Yeah, and Daily Blink did a really good spoof of it. Like on one of their comics, it was like Fire Mage, and it's like a nuclear explosion with Fire Mage written in front of it. And like everyone was leaving comments, they want to see that if Blizzard converts to mega damage. And so I think everyone's kind of just taking it as a joke at this point that they'd even do that.
I'm gonna play the devil's advocate here for a second and say, if we went the route of number squishing, couldn't we just, down the road get back to the exact point we are at now, and they just have to? So technically, could they just be making it more work in the future?
Well, I mean, either way, here's I don't really care how they fix it. What I care about is this: Sulfuros, 12 strength, 12 stam, 80 DPS, item level 80. Eshkandi, item level 81, 81.9 DPS, 33 stam. Dark Edge, 86.6, eye level 84, 35 strength, 25 stam. Might of Menethil, item level 89, 95.3 damage, 20 strength, 46 stam. And then compare that to now, where going from normal mode of hard mode of the same in the same instance is 100 strength and 50 DPS upgrade. In the next expansion, I would have no problem with them doing normal mode is 100 strength, 100 stam, hard mode 102 strength, 102 stam. It's an upgrade no matter which way you go about it, but
But at that point, it's so minute that nobody would really care.
No, people will care. I mean,
people will care.
You raid to max min.
Even as late as Sunwell. Let's look at some Sunwell items. The where is it? Hold on. I just had it open. I can't find which tab it is.
Insert advertisement here. But while you find that, let me go ahead and continue with what I was saying. For hardcore raiders, that would be everyone would min max. But for the casuals, the large majority of the player base, people I don't really think would not maybe care is not the good answer, but if they didn't get that +2 strength, I mean this would also depend on if they change the the damage per point from strength or whatever. But just looking at it now, if I went from a 400 agility staff to a 410 agility staff, yeah, it's an upgrade. But if I don't get it, I don't feel like I'm significantly weaker than the person that does have the 410 agility staff.
Well, the other way you can look at it is no one raids hard modes really today for the gear so much.
Absolutely, no one.
Most people do hard modes for the challenge. If you want, if you want gear, you just do like LFR, you do normals, you do your heroics, you do your dailies. If you actually want to be challenged, you do hard modes, and that's why like 90% of the WoW community refer to as like hardcore mode or something like that. So if the hard mode gear is better, then most people aren't going to complain that they can't do the content or get the gear.
Case in point, Illidan Ring, 33 stam, 30 hit rating, 18 crit, 66 AP. Best ring in the game from BT off the last boss. The ring from Sunwell off Eridar Twins, 30 stam, 32 crit, 23 haste, and 66 AP. Same amount of AP, 3 eye level difference, and every single person in your raid wanted it as an upgrade. Granted, you have 2 ring slots, but that small of a difference was enough to make every single person want it. Although, granted, I think it had armor pen instead of something else in the Illidan ring.
There's that word again. What? I
but,
don't know what this thing is.
Look at how small of an upgrade those 2 rings are. And it was a massive upgrade in those days. Nowadays, unless you're upgrading, 2 sockets and 30 of your primary stat, people don't even bother rolling on it. They'll just wait for the hard mode version of it. I mean, people don't want upgrades anymore. They want their best in slot. And I think forcing people to,
part of that also
to want upgrades again.
Worrying about your best in slot item is that there's just not that many items that drop. I mean, if you look at VP and boss drops, there's like...
Oh, I know. I remember I was... Last night on Vent, I said to my guild, hey, do you guys remember during BT and Hydro when there were 4 male shoulders that were all agi and one of them had specific Beastmaster stats for pets? And we were just thinking back at that. There was a huge post on EJ about that. About how items... There was like 8 off-spec items for every single slot of every armor class. And now there's 2 items, your set item and 1 offset item, and that's it nowadays. Which is good in a way, but it's also bad in a way.
Well, I don't know. I agree with you guys completely with what you're saying, but I know I don't know. Like I said, it's going to have to be dependent upon how they change the scaling, which obviously they're going to have to. Maybe 2 strength is a huge increase. I don't know.
Well, because 2 strength today even is an increase, because that's like 2 strength for strength within class is like an 8 DPS increase, about 4 points of DPS per strength. The only problem is you're doing about 45k DPS. So it's the fact that an 8 DPS upgrade just isn't an upgrade in like the awe-spanning
I
scale of how much
personally,
damage you do.
I don't know. I kind of argue with myself between the feeling of Burning Crusade, damage, healing, and tanking versus Wrath of the Lich King. I think they were both great models, but I tend to lean towards Wrath of the Lich King as being like my favorite. Like, this is how much DPS I feel as though we should be doing, and this is how much damage the tank should be taking. Completely throwing out the whole block cap because that was just silly. Um,
Wrath tanking I thought was really bad. It was you're either getting one-shotted or you're not.
That's what made it fun, though. I mean, you're in the middle of Heroic Lich King, and all of a sudden the Blood Elf is in 3 pieces on the ground. Come on, that was awesome.
I don't remember it being fun for the healers or tanks, where it's like, oh, maybe I need more stam so I can survive 4 hits without receiving a heal instead of 3.
Wow. I agree to disagree then, I guess. Yeah, I get. Do you got any ending points there, Darksend?
Just that, I mean, they as much said they made item levels exponential instead of linear. If they, and as much as people will hate this, and there was so many posts about this during alpha for this expansion, especially on Tank Spot, we got into some huge discussions about this, where I go from level 80 to 81, and killing a level 80 mob becomes harder by leveling up. And that is the only way they're going to fix that problem is if they actually implement that for real this time. They
Yeah, that
tried
was.
implementing it during last alpha, and too many people complained about it. But the only way they're going to fix that is if you get weaker by leveling until you hit level cap.
Interesting. Moving on. The next topic comes from a pretty popular guild, I must say. Vodka on Altaric Mountains. I guess one of their paladins named Misery had posted. Basically, they were talking about the nerfs that are incoming to Dragon Soul and basically how to make everyone happy. And they pointed out, here are the basic assumptions. The players that are for the nerfs acknowledge and accept that defeating a boss post-nerf is inferior to beating a boss pre-nerf. 2. Players acknowledge and accept that Blizzard strives to make everyone happy, not just specific groups. 3. Hardcore raiders realize casuals, less progressed players may not be bad. There are a variety of other factors that can affect slow progression. 4. Casuals, less progressed players realize hardcore raiders are not elitists. They are simply defending their prized possessions. The effort they put into getting it, the effort they put into getting a fast kill. So before I go on with his solutions and everything, I'm kind of confused by what he meant by the assumptions. Now, Cody, I know that you had read this. What is he exactly meaning?
It's that one is it's players. Really, what it is players feeling less of a player because they can't kill the boss pre-nerf. And part of what that is me personally, I think players should just own up to the fact that, oh, I wasn't good enough to kill this pre-nerf. That means I'm not good enough to kill this pre-nerf. The second one is really hard for people because it requires, internet people to think of more of themselves, because it's like people are like, well, Blizzard does this so people pay Blizzard money, and everyone just goes, well, I don't care what Blizzard does. Blizzard should appeal to me, even though I'm the only person who, they aren't the only person who gets Blizzard money. The third one, I don't know. The fourth one is the one that I really want to touch on because that seems like a huge, huge issue for
Counting doesn't go
Raiders.
1, 2, 4. We've got to hit number 3 now. Come
Gotta
on.
hit number 3. Hardcore raiders realize that casuals may not be bad, but the variety of other factors may slow progress. It's just true. I don't know how I can say anything about it. But then isn't your roster nothing more than part of how you raid? If you choose to keep like a 10-person roster for a 10-man guild, then you have to realize that there can be negative progression side effects, and then it just goes back to number 1, and it's your fault for not getting the pre-nerf kill. And the fourth, I believe, is kind of the hardest for people, is because as a raider myself, is you like to look back on content and be like, yeah, I was one of the 4% of people who killed Heroic Ascended Council pre-nerf. Or like, yeah, I'm one of the few people who have an Of the Four Winds title. And then when you see like, like the scrub guilds getting it and stuff like that, you almost like feel cheated on some level because you put in all of this work and then other people just get it for free. And it's hard to almost put up with that because you know that people are getting the same thing you're getting for less of a price. It's almost like if you go to a store and you buy something at 50 or at full price and you're happy you got it and then the next day it's on sale for 50% off.
The JC Penney commercial.
Something like that. That's almost what it feels like when stuff gets nerfed, like after you kill it. Like Heroic Ragnaros, for example.
Well,
You
no,
kill Heroic Ragnaros.
see, I'm going to take the exact opposite position to that. Is you said this is going to happen, which is why I can't stop laughing. But anyway, I'm going to take the opposite position and say, on Lich King, we were wiping on Lich King between 10 and 50, or between 15%, like between 15 and 13%. We had every single attempt for an entire week -5 for random shit happening, or for -5 for random occurrences happening and you just dying for no reason, was between 15 and 13%. And that was the 4th week of 20%. Or maybe it was only the 3rd week of 20%. It was Monday night, and we spent the entire night as a guild on Vent praying that they wouldn't change the buff. And guess what? Next week, clear. Very first attempt still at 20%. We kill it. Very next week, 25% comes out. Had we not killed it that week after wiping so long, and had they put that buff in, that extra 5% in, after wiping all week, all 50 attempts at less than 3%, would have just broken the guild and probably would have split the guild up. That feeling of knowing we were right there and we couldn't do it. Granted, it's not as drastic anymore since they got rid of, the attempt cap. But that feeling of knowing we were 1% away and then they put the nerf in. How do you do that to people, Blizzard? I mean, come on. It is the worst feeling ever as a guild.
Relate to that because, like, as of right now, my guild just ended Heroic Madness progression, and we put in a solid number of attempts this week after a lockout extension, and we are literally about 2% off on the last platform. And it's heartbreaking knowing that it's going to be nerfed here in a few hours, but I mean, honestly, we're mature enough individuals that it's like we couldn't kill it pre-nerf. Oh well, we just weren't good enough.
I'm gonna tighten my tie here and buckle my pants and say that
no guild I've ever been in, I've been in a lot of top end guilds.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of
guild
people
I've ever been
dissenting against that opinion. There's a lot of people, but I mean, like the officers and most of the people I know in the guild, that's just what we're saying is we're just like, we failed. It sucks. But
you failed at what though? I mean, honestly, think about it. 5%, and it's not even a 5% player buff. It's just like a numbers change. Okay, so if
you would not have extended your lockout had you not known that they were putting it in less than 12 hours.
We did know it was coming. We did know.
Right, that's my point though. Had you not known, had Blizzard never announced they were putting this in, then
we would have really felt.
You would have had an extra week of loot because by extending the lockout, that 2% came from the drops you didn't get because you didn't extend the lockout because Blizzard told you this was going to be put in.
Well, hold on. I've got something to say. Sorry. I'm gonna pick up my briefcase and tighten my tie. I'm gonna say 2 things. 1, I killed Heroic Lich King at 15%. Suck it, Darksend. 2, you can turn that buff off. It's not like it's permanent. You can just turn it off.
No. You cannot turn the buff off. I just want to make this clear. When you look at WoW progress, it does not matter. You can claim up and down when we turn the buff off. You can make a video that clearly shows there was no buff. But at the end of the day, everyone looks at the date of your achievement and they're like, they killed it post-nerf.
Well, even if the nerf is off. I understand the competition side of it, but at the same time, you gotta, like you said, you gotta be mature enough to know. Okay, we clicked off, we killed it. If people are saying, well, you still use it, we can't track that, so you're still using it. Well, at that point, it's something they gotta deal with. Isn't self-knowing enough for a guild?
No.
No. I'm going with no. I want to hear your opinion on this. If you, let's say, were to kill 0% Lich King weeks after, like with Hallian loot, but like you didn't make a video like Paragon did, but you just had personal bragging rights that you killed Lich King at 0% with your guild, and you and 24 other people are the only people who know that in the world. Could you live with that?
Yes.
Because whenever you went to brag or say like, yeah, I killed Lich King 0%, everyone would be like, yeah, and I own oceanfront property in Arizona.
I see what you did there. I understand. Like I said, I understand the competition side of it. But so what you're basically saying is because the cake is on the table, you have to eat it.
Yeah.
Now, the solution, on the other hand, first of all, they need to make the buffs clickable off by a percentage. The reason so many people were upset with Lich King is because once it hit 10%, it was either.
I'm sorry. Hold on. The Ice Crown Citadel buff was like Garrosh's war song. So what do you just go down and go, Garrosh, can you sing a little bit quieter, just a little bit? Just a tiny bit, man.
No, you
But
just put in
anyway, the
earplugs
point
a little
is,
bit.
the reason there was such an uproar is because once you hit 10%, it was either 10% or 0. So no one could prove they were equal to Paragon. You were either 10% or better by doing it at 0, which was impossible until you had tons and tons of loot.
And Hallian.
So for this first solution, where different titles, each percent of the stacking buff has a different title, then you should definitely be allowed to go in increments to get titles. Just like Yogg, you know? You could 1 keeper, 2 keeper, whatever. And Freya had a different title or a different achievement for every single one. It wasn't all or nothing. I love increments. I've said this so many times on the show before. I love hard modes that have increments, and you could do 0, 1, 2, 3 or ultimate hard mode. So for this first solution with the titles, you need to be able to increment the buff. It's that way it's not either all or nothing. And I honestly hadn't read the solutions until now. I've been reading them as you've been going back and forth. And Vodka knows their stuff because these solutions are really good.
So Misery from Vodka posted a lot more, and one of it was the solutions. The first solution I propose is to create 3 separate titles. Example, Savior of Azeroth, exclusive to Madness pre-nerf, and X of Azeroth for Madness post-nerf. Something like Knight of Azeroth, Defender of Azeroth, Michael Jackson of Azeroth. Each title would be exclusive to each type of encounters. Now, I'm not saying make new title for each 5% nerf, but maybe 3 different titles. You know, Savior, 0% Knight, 5 to 15%, and Defender, the 20 final percent. I have to say, I really like that solution. Because, and it's not necessarily about the titles, because the titles are nice and all, but I will forever have my Herald of the Titans title. I will always keep that. But I do like that because here's what I liked about Old War, like hard modes and everything like that. Was Old War hard modes was not about a big, achievement that said heroic Old War. It was just individual achievements for changing the encounter around, like killing the different order on council or something like that. And I think that those different types of tiles, not necessarily the tiles, but different achievements, would be, to me, more self-obtaining than a title that I'm never going to use. What do you guys think?
Yeah,
Well, for
I
me to
have Death's Demise, and I will forever be Darksend Death's Demise. Simple as that. I hate titles.
And that's all
For
for
me
Darksend. What about
personally-
you, Cody?
for the
Well, I
first
just
solution
spent 10 minutes talking about this already.
for the first solution to work, the nerfs have to be in the instance day 1. If they add them after the fact, then they're still just a concession prize. So that means day 1 you have to have Lord Alphonse or whatever his name is out in front of Dragonsoul being like, hey, do you want to do normal, LFR, or heroic? And do you want that mode to be Velcro, normal, or double heroic? And then you'll get the achievements based on that. Because, I mean, if they decide to add it after a point, then they're adding more, achievements into the game. Because every time, I mean, not for every nerf, but then it's like, hey, guess what? January 31st, we're unlocking Knight of Azeroth. And then, yeah, people are going to go back and get Knight of Azeroth in the top guilds just to get, another achievement or stuff like that.
Yeah, that's
So,
actually a really good point.
yeah, that's the big problem I see
Well,
with it.
basically what I had said, just someone to his second solution, which was, 3 separate, and his was a little bit different, like Spine of Deathwing Gold, Spine of Deathwing Silver, Spine of Deathwing Bronze, and the titles would be respected
Which
to
is just a
former.
different take on the same solution as the first one. I mean,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
not really much different.
I personally like that, but I see where that could cause an issue, like you just pointed out. The third solution I propose is to allow players to set the percent nerf to any percent they feel. We just talked about that. We're skipping ahead now.
No,
Create
I
an
like that
NPC
idea.
at the front of the
Just stop
instance,
on that
allowing
idea
you.
for like 1 second. I like that idea because if you can set it past 100%, just to like walk in and solo Dragon Soul would just be awesome.
Oh my. And you interrupted me for that. The third solution I propose is to allow players to set the percent nerf to any percent they feel. Create an NPC at the front of the instance, allowing you to change the percent nerf of the mobs. We already talked about this, blah, blah, blah. We like it, we don't like it, whatever. The fourth solution would be to allow players to earn each title and each achievement. The fourth solution would be to allow players to earn each title and each achievement by completing the raid on the percent difficulty relative to what I listed. You may argue, well, a raid with full 410s can easily demolish a 0% madness spine. You would be correct, and thus it leads to the fifth solution. The fifth.
Don't tell me I haven't read it yet. Is it an Algalon type achievement for Algalon 10 man? It is, isn't it? Let me read. I'll shut up and listen now, but I bet it is. I honestly haven't read it yet.
My
I'll tell you in a
fifth
second.
and
Sit
final
here, I'm gonna tell you.
solution would be to take the average eye level of players now on the armory and implement them into a nerf percent much like Herald of the Titans.
I swear I had not read that yet.
Our minds have been blown by you, Darksend. Let me
Damn
finish
right.
this now. You wouldn't be able to force players to swap back to normal tier because your normal piece is used when you buy your heroic piece. So you would have to
That's no
equalize the
longer the
player's
case, though,
stats
right?
by taking the percent stat gain off the fixed number of heroic pieces to effectively reduce their eye level to a certain point. This, in effect, would place the players in the same environment that players had to progress through DS and start at the start of the tier, nowhere near optimal gear. So, Darksend, because you already just cracked the code, what do you think?
I've said this before. They're putting the system in place to do this now. I honestly I wonder if they had this in mind when they thought of the challenge mode dungeons, because that is exactly what challenge mode dungeons are going to be.
Nothing else?
Now,
Cody, what do you think of this?
I agree, and I like the idea of gear level or equalization. So then it actually does make the fights hard no matter what, and this also would allow for not exactly the recycling of content, but it would allow you to go back if it was implemented as such, that you could go back to like Burning Crusade and stuff like that and being able to redo these fights at the same level of difficulty they were while the fights were at live originally.
or just have challenge mode raids where there's no loot, nothing at all, and you can do it as many times a week as you want.
I think we kind of touched on that last week, and we got a lot of recourse from people because apparently they didn't understand exactly what we had meant. But I would definitely love something like that, just to be able to keep killing something. LFR kind of allows that, but it's only 25 man. Just keep killing something over and over with no benefit whatsoever from killing them. I think it'd be fun and interesting, and actually on a normal mode or heroic mode. Maybe if you kill something and you're wanting to progress, well, you don't kill this. Well, let's go redo this boss real quick. We won't get anything for it, but let's go redo it to practice on it. I think that'd be pretty cool. You agree? Okay.
The only way I see that being useful is for applicants to your guild.
Yeah,
Because
I mean
nine times out of 10,
that's
nine times
another
out of 10,
side of
you
it.
don't want to go back and do a fight again. Like it's almost like even there's fights that I really really liked, I don't want to go back and do them again.
Well,
Like that's
but it's an option. It's not like you have to. Okay, it's not like the percent nerf or anything. The cake on the table you have to take. It's something that you go here, click this, let's go redo this real quick. You don't have to do it. It's just there for the hell of it.
I just don't see the fun in that. Then I'm the type of person who just like throws himself at rating content. So than to go back and be like, hey, let's do this fight again at the same difficulty it was before, but without any reward whatsoever. Then it just kind of seems like, wait, what? To me, at least.
Well, anyways, he finishes up basically with, yes, it's a lot of work on Blizzard's part, but this is how you keep customers happy and playing. This is what we pay you to do. So, well said, sir. And let's see, moving on to the next topic as I click through thousands of pages and try to find it. Probably our biggest topic of this week, and it's actually something I stumbled across in MMO Champion and fell in love. Definitely, the man's name on the forums is Thedronk. Guess he went for drunk, but they already had that, or is it against some rules? And basically, it's one of those concepts for WoW. You know, people are like, well, I want to make this class, and here's all of it's comprised of, or I want to make this, and here's what it's all comprised of. But he made something that isn't a new class or a new instance or something. It's just a completely new take on world PvP that could actually be fun and interesting and actually bring back world PvP. And it's called Path of War. Now, there's so much of it. It's really hard to just go through all of it. We don't have enough time. So I'm assuming
I'll sum it up for you. Think of, if you ever played Dark Age of Camelot, think of RVR, where it's its own separate instance where you just battle all the time. It's persistent. This isn't exactly what he's saying, but this is my take on it. A persistent phase where everything is always in flux and going back and forth, where you have to fight to control stuff. You have to fight to siege engines and I don't know. I love Dark Age of Camelot, so I'd go on forever. But that's why I love this concept so much, because RVR in Dark Age of Camelot was the most fun PvP I have ever had in an MMO, because it was persistent.
I definitely think RVR is a good take on it. His exact wording was basically it would be kind of like, you know, how Darkmoon Fair, you know, before it had its own island, basically would go month to month to these different places. Where this would be the same thing, month to month, it's in a different part of Azeroth. Desolus this month, or Ashen Vale this month, Darkshore, whatever you want to call it. You know, just constantly moving throughout, and then each month there are quests, daily quests basically, and then one weekly quest for each faction, and they would fight one another. It'd be world PvP, hoops and galahs, and everybody be dying and arrows flying and mages being OP somewhere. They're always there. So, just stopping on that for a minute, what do you think of it, Cody?
The general idea or the RVR idea?
The general idea.
Because the general idea I really like, because it's a dynamic world, and that gets people out of Orgrimmar. And as Darksend likes to point out, that's all we see of World of Warcraft nowadays is Orgrimmar or Stormwind. And I really like that. The main issue that I see with it, though, is
Am I really the
faction
only hipster
balance.
that hangs out in chat? Really?
Aldor Stryer.
Peace, my brother. Keep going, Cody.
South side or west side? It's that. It's about, getting the people out of the city. But the big problem, like I said, was the faction imbalance, and it's also rewards. Because no one is going to do world PvP at the end of the day if grinding battlegrounds is going to be more honor per hour or minute, whatever.
Case in point, Star Wars. Ilum is probably the biggest disaster in the history of an MMO.
Yeah, and that's sort of the problem. And then he also went on to talk about like scenarios and rewards, and those also, like, for example, if there's, let's say, 5-man instances that you unlock by doing this, they need to scale to keep up and give people a reason to do it. Because, like, let's say in Tol Barad, you fought over it, but you never got a new
Can you
boss.
repeat that again?
Shut up, you!
Keep going.
All right, so implying that you actually would fight over Tol Barad. Or Wintergrasp. The rewards from it need to scale. So if it's just the same item level, like if they implement this in MoP, and it's going to be like, oh man, we have to do this month's warpath to get our items so we can do tier 14. As soon as tier 15 rolls out, it's going to be like, yeah, there's those warpaths. They were fun. They really were. But now we have to raid, ninjas versus pandas raid instance or whatever it's going to be.
I don't know. I agree. I completely agree with what you're saying. Where they would have to have something to keep you going back to it. And he had said a couple things. Like reputation, and then you get to choose between honor and justice points for some reward stuff like that. And then you'd get different patterns, which I think would be a big one as well. Make actually really good patterns from this every tier. Um, there's various things that I honestly want to delve into that for a second. I think the pattern and the crafting has really been overlooked. It's kind of started in Wrath and really in Kata, because if they added, how do I put this? If they added patterns outside of raiding and PvP, like actually in areas, quest change, daily quest or something, people would actually have incentive to go do it. But that's just not the case. When Kata first started, we did, with engineering goggles or something like that. But once we got to the next tier, we replaced it, and they never expanded upon it, which, might I add, I'm still very upset about, Blizzard, because you promised that our goggles would scale every tier.
Way to get completely off track. But the only thing I'm worried about is, I guess, although I did see someone bring it up, was how is this going to affect questing and leveling in those zones?
It'd be phased, wouldn't it? I think that's what
I think that's the answer he gave. And since it's phased, that solves the ultimate problem. No flying mounts while you're phased. Finally, that's the best thing that I can ever say. This game needs to get rid of flying mounts. Sorry, Randy. I hate flying mounts.
I get the feeling you're on a soapbox and you just pulled out big chunks of hair.
My point was that as a druid, I don't even have a mount on my bar because I never leave Ogremar, so I don't need a ground mount. So I just have flight form, and that's it. I want a reason to put my mount back on my bar.
But you're a druid.
That was off topic. What do you think, Cody? See what I did there?
Well, for starters, he's a druid, so you don't need a mount. For secondary, I agree. There should be no flying in the warpath. Bombing missions would be cool. Like, if you remember the thing in Hellfire, where you have to go, like, bomb the ledge with the demons and stuff there on them. It's right outside. It's in Hellfire Peninsula, but it's a quest. You go and you bomb stuff. Doing that would be fun.
The abyssal
but that's
shelf,
not.
I believe.
Yeah, that's it. But that is not flying. That's like doing a little quest where you fly around in the air. No, flying wouldn't be allowed.
Another thing that he actually added to this post, which I actually thought was really cool, he added graphs. Holy crap, he added graphs. And the first one was off of balancing, the issues solved. And he had one graph, basically, which on the y-axis, it was the amount of honor kills is worth, and on the x-axis, the variance of players, numbers, and factions. So the amount of honor you would get would be directly affected by how many of the other faction, or how many of your faction is there. Before I go on, I don't know if that would really work, especially on, like, what is it, Tichondrius, where it's like alliance is 1.85 to 0.5 or something like that.
Well, I'm stealing a lot of ideas from Star Wars, but on Tatooine, there's a place where you can attack people of your same faction if you're not in their group. So as long as you're grouped with that person, you're safe. But if you go into that zone and then leave group, you can attack the person you were just in a group with. If they did this in sort of an RVR format where only people in your group are friendly to you, and everyone, and you can't talk to anyone other than your group. Granted, that's completely changing the topic here, but something like that I think could really work to help promote PvP in general, not necessarily world PvP, just PvP in general.
Yeah, RuneScape did something similar to that with to go to a completely different MMO with their wilderness system.
RuneScape.
Yes, RuneScape, where it was just everyone can kill everyone no matter what, 24/7.
Yeah, Age of Conan was like that too. Everywhere in the world, you could. That was the best feeling ever, rolling up on guildies and just sniping them.
Oh yeah, and it was a ton of fun in the wilderness too, but how they did their level scaling was just made it stupid hard.
Here's my question, and this was a very whole Tolbarad debacle, this expansion, where they had a seesaw of a like honor payout every time someone won. It ended up being the Horde would let the Alliance win this time, and then vice versa the next time. Do you think that that might happen with this if there is the varying amount of players on one faction directly affects the honor gain on the other? Do you think there'd be like, well, this month we're going to be really a strong presence over there. The next month they are going to be. Do you think that would happen?
No. I think what would just happen is if you were on a faction imbalanced server, you just wouldn't do it.
Which is every server. I think
yeah,
that's another
a
big.
month. I think a month is too long of a time to not control something.
It wouldn't work unless it was cross realm. I think is the main problem. Is because unless you're on a server like Storm Reaver or Storm Rage that are almost perfectly faction balanced, it's not going to work. Because as soon as you start deducting the honor per kill because there's less people, that's literally encouraging you not to kill the other faction. And so basically, it's now here's a PvP zone, don't kill anybody. And that seems to be a major problem. Or it does to me at least.
Well, that's all the topics for us. We kind of had more of a laid back episode this week because I'm not feeling so hot. Well, that's all for us, guys. Thanks for tuning in to Forum Junkies. As always, I'm your host Huck, followed by Darksend.
Thank you for joining us, Cody.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Hope you guys might see Cody again. I do got a couple people who are still interested in guesting, and I'm gonna get as many people I can in, and then me and Darkson are going to figure out who's gonna get it. So if you guys are interested, drop us a line on our Facebook page or message me on.
But first, learn how to check your Facebook messages.
Yes, please learn
Oh,
how
God.
to check your Facebook messages.
Anyway, good night, guys.
Delving right in, our first topic will be a pretty generalized topic that a lot of people across the forums talk about. It's kind of an older topic. I don't know, guys. What do you think? A month or two old? It's the mega damage versus number squish method.
Yeah, that was a while ago.
Yeah,
Very amusing
month
ideas,
two.
though.
No, definitely. I don't know. I personally love to see, if I crit, 120k and it popped up 12 mega damage and it lights everywhere and fireworks. That'd be awesome. But anyways, let's just go ahead and talk about it. Um, First of all, Blizzard basically made the point, and everybody else has been kind of complaining about this, that as World of Warcraft has gone along, the number inflation of damage, healing, and mitigation in general has just gone completely wonky. And at the end of Wrath of the Lich King, it was the worst it's ever been. And I would dare to say that Dragon Soul with, the LFR and such like that, it may be a little bit more getting there, but nowhere near to the extent that like Ice Crown Citadel 30% buff and all that scaling was just out of control. So they basically said that there are two options before them, and there's actually three, and they really didn't say it, but there are actually three where they can just leave it where it is. But the two that they want to look into is mega damage versus number squish. And the mega damage option is actually pretty interesting, where it just consolidates 12k into, or let's say 10k consolidates it into one super damage or something like that. Just consolidates it, kind of like how in StarCraft, things will hit 1, 2, and above that, but never really high. Basically, consolidate that. And the reason why they want to do that option is on the table is because the basically server lag that goes in between whenever you hit a 120,543 is a lot harder to actually get from point A to point B than it is just putting in a 1 or a 2. So, and then the number squish, which I think is just about everyone's favorite out of the two, is basically they're just scaling numbers in general. They're just going to squash them down to 12k is 1.2k. 100 or let's say 230k health is back to 23k health. So, kind of going in, Darksend. Starting with you, Cody, because you're the new guy. Which one of these between the mega damage and number squish is your favorite? And basically, in your eyes, how would that one work better than the other?
Well, the first thing, almost end up being the same thing at the end of the day. Because like if you're dealing 120k damage, let's say, with the number squish, then you deal like 120 damage. But with like the mega damage or something like that, then you just deal 120k. So I mean, at the end of the day, it's gonna look the same either way, whether you're doing which system. And with that in mind, I kind of like the number squish better because then it just makes items like far more manageable. We won't see like the 5,000 stamina and 6,000 strength and a million armor pen or crap like that on stats like as an item.
Armor pin's
And
still around? I didn't get the
just
memo.
just pulling random stats off the top of my head.
Sorry, yeah, of course. Go
But
ahead.
yeah, like that's the main point. And then it's like it makes almost theory crafting a lot easier because then you don't sound as bad when you're like, oh well, if I swap these gems, I get an extra 400 intellect. But really, that's next to nothing because your gear has like 40,000 intellect on it. So I don't know. It just seems like the number squish would make a lot more sense. Just yeah.
So the number squish, in your opinion, which I kind of tend to agree with, is just overall. I think the problem with the mega damage, I don't know if you agree with this or not, is it's almost too cartoony. Just the way they kind of, and they even kind of put it on the table as a joke with that picture of the mage,
That's one thing I thought it was one of those Daily Blink or MMO comic things, not an actual Blizzard post when I first saw it on MMO's homepage. I'm like, this can't be a serious post, is it? So, I mean, that's why I don't like that option at all.
Yeah, and Daily Blink did a really good spoof of it. Like on one of their comics, it was like Fire Mage, and it's like a nuclear explosion with Fire Mage written in front of it. And like everyone was leaving comments, they want to see that if Blizzard converts to mega damage. And so I think everyone's kind of just taking it as a joke at this point that they'd even do that.
I'm gonna play the devil's advocate here for a second and say, if we went the route of number squishing, couldn't we just, down the road get back to the exact point we are at now, and they just have to? So technically, could they just be making it more work in the future?
Well, I mean, either way, here's I don't really care how they fix it. What I care about is this: solve for us. 12 strength, 12 stam, 80 DPS, item level 80. Eshkandi, item level 81, 81.9 DPS, 33 stam. Dark Edge, 86.6, eye level 84, 35 strength, 25 stam. Might of Menethil, item level 89, 95.3 damage. 20 strength, 46 stam. And then compare that to now, where going from normal mode of hard mode of in the same instance is 100 strength and 50 DPS upgrade. In the next expansion, I would have no problem with them doing normal mode is 100 strength, 100 stam, hard mode 102 strength, 102 stam. It's an upgrade no matter which way you go about it, but
at that point, it's so minute that nobody would really care.
No, people will care. I mean,
people will care.
You rate to max min.
Even as late as Sunwell. Let's look at some Sunwell items. The where is it? Hold on, I just had it open. I can't find which tab it is.
Insert advertisement here. But while you find that, let me go ahead and continue with what I was saying. For hardcore raiders, that would be everyone would min-max. But for the casuals, the large majority of the player base, people, I don't really think would not maybe care is not the good answer. But if they